And is it very cold in Washington right now?
Um, the weather in Washington, D.C. right now is like Congress. You don't know what it's going to do. It's unpredictable. It's been cold. Yes, I think it's only a couple of degrees above freezing. And it's been like that. I think today it might get to be 47 degrees Fahrenheit, but it's been cold. And my clothing, most of my clothing are made for tropical climates because I wear African clothing all the time, except for when I shower, but that's another story. And so, I have mud cloth, and mud cloth is heavier. So I've been, this is the time of year I get to wear my mud cloth. But it's been cold. It's been cold and wet, you know.
Right, right.
And it's
And it's been muggy and hot in Mumbai.
yeah, I heard, you know, but I wish you safe weather,
Yes,
you know. Let's give him 2 more minutes and we'll get started.
sure.
Kind of waiting for Louis to tune in. Louis is our resident young person. He's been with us for the longest, and he's usually and that nope, that's see, I told you people coming in a little late, but that's all right. Terry's coming in. Terry's cool people. Terry's also from the United States.
Okay. Hi,
And
Terry.
hopefully Louis will be coming in a moment, and Norman from Canada. Um, if he doesn't have a meeting with his Canadian storytellers, he'll be coming in a moment. Hey, Terry. Hey, Terry. We're just going to give it a couple of more minutes.
Sure, sure.
And I'll be listening, but I'm going to go get my lunch. So I'll probably turn my video off for a while.
Sure,
Oh, okay.
sure.
You don't want to see me eat.
Hey, no, you don't want to see me eat because I think, oh, John is joining us. I think good food is messy food. Yes.
And you have a beard, so that makes it worse.
Oh, I could tell you a story about that, but I won't. Hey, John,
Hi, John.
we're gonna get started in a minute or two. We're just waiting for you and Louis and possibly Norman to come in.
So, are you all coming to Marrakesh?
Yes, I'm coming to Marrakesh. Even if I have to walk, I'll be coming to Marrakesh. Hopefully, I won't have to walk because it'll be a long, wet walk. But yes, I'll be there.
I am not. I'm not a world traveler.
I like traveling. I don't enjoy the process. So it's like the idea of going there is great with me, but I'm not afraid of traveling on plane, but being on the plane and getting there, but once I'm there, yay! John, unless you object, we're gonna wait 1 more minute.
Yeah, I think yeah, maybe Louis not around this
You
week,
think Louis
but
may not be around today?
yeah, let's go for it. Are we
Right.
on Facebook yet?
I think so.
Can you see?
Oh yes, we are on Facebook.
Yes.
Waleed just
Marvelous.
confirmed it.
Thank you. Then we'll start it. First of all, apologies for the extra syllable in your name on the site, Usha. That's, I think I noticed that there was a misspelling there, but it's what we're best at. So, ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, an assembled company, welcome to the World Storytelling Cafe. I'm in the dark here because I'm sitting in my car on the way back home, but I've managed to find a service station to pull into so I can deal with this program. So tonight it's Omar's coming in. So Hi, Omar. So tonight we have, and I don't think she's been on for a long, long while, but it is a great privilege to have Usha Venekatraman. You shouldn't get a cough in the middle of a long word, right? Venkatraman. And so could we put our hands together, wave, do whatever we do, and welcome Usha to the World Storytelling Cafe one more time for the first time for some years, I think. Usha, it's lovely to have you here.
Thank you,
I'm going to
John.
hand over to you now.
Thank you, John. Thank you, Terry. Thank you, Baba. And I can see one more person. And I think Louis will join us. But I'm happy to be here. And it is good evening. It's about 11:40 nighttime in Mumbai, India. Like I was telling, it's a muggy, I wouldn't say hot, a kind of it's cool in the evenings. And I'm happy to be back in Storytellers Cafe, I think after a year and a half. So it's been quite some time. Yes. So let's begin. Christmas is right round the corner. And I would like to start with this story by the great folklorist from India, A.K. Ramanujam. So, A.K. Ramanujam has written wonderful stories, and this story, especially, is a favorite of mine, one of the favorites. And this is a story about an old woman. You know, what happens when you don't speak out, when you don't spill the beans? You know, unspoken words can lead to catastrophe. So, this is the story, and I thought it's a wonderful way to start today's evening. So, there was an old woman who was mistreated by her family. She had 4 sons and daughters in law. She was unable to express herself, so she kept her grievances locked inside her. She didn't share it with anyone. And soon, over time, those woes, all those troubles turned into fat. So she became excessively overweight. Now her family began to taunt her and make fun of her girth and treated her worse. She grew fatter and fatter and sadder. One day, she couldn't take it anymore, so she leaves the house and comes across an old, abandoned, roofless house. So she steps inside that house, turns to the first wall, and she begins speaking of her grievances, of all the complaints against the first son and the daughter in law. The wall, unable to bear the burden of this woman's grief, actually collapses. And then she turns to the next wall and talks about her second son and her daughter in law. And that wall too collapses. And so she does the same thing to the third wall and the fourth wall. All the walls collapse under the weight of her grievance. The whole house comes crashing down. But the old woman is now thin. She's lost all that weight. It seems to have disappeared. And she steps out light and free. So, this is a very short story where A.K. Ramanujam begins his folk tales. So, it's very important to speak out, share, and spill the beans. So, that's my story to begin with. And I want to go on to the next story, which is from Africa. It's a Swahili story. Most of you might know it. It's another favorite of mine. There once lived a sultan, an emperor, who had riches beyond compare. His coffers were filled with gold and silver, and he had servants waiting on him hand and foot, and he didn't need anything. He had a wife, but he was not happy. His wife began to grow thinner and weaker, and this worried him. No matter what the Sultan prepared food, asked the royal chefs to cook nutritious food, she continued to deteriorate in health. One day, the Sultan noticed that one of his servants, a very poor man, had a wife who was plump and full of life and vigor. The Sultan asked the poor man what he fed his wife. And he said, Your Majesty, I feed her the meat of the tongue. Very simple, he replied. I feed her the meat of the tongue. The Sultan then ordered his chefs to prepare tongues from every possible beast and fowl. But still his wife withered away. She didn't gain weight. Finally, in desperation, one day, the Sultan demanded that the poor man's wife exchange places with his wife so that she might be restored to good health. Immediately, the Sultan's wife, when she began to live with the servant, she began to thrive, and the poor man's wife, who lived in the palace, began to wither and fade. Now, the Sultan admired his wife who had regained her robust health, and he asked her, What is it that he fed you? I must know, wife, what did he feed you? And she said, My dear husband, what he fed me, the meat of the tongue that your servant fed me, wasn't the tongue of an animal or a fowl, but he fed me stories, songs, poetry that rolled off the tongue and filled the heart. This is what made me thrive, and that is the meat of the tongue. So I'm sure you must have heard this story before. So I think every Friday we hear the meat of the tongue on Storytellers Cafe in the World Cafe, and I think
We've lost your sound, Usha.
I was just about to say that. We have a wonderful picture of you, but we're not getting your audio. And we need to have more meat of the tongue from you. And John, you know I am so borrowing that story. Nope, still not hearing you.
But they've been a great 2 stories so far.
The meat of the tongue, I like that.
Okay.
can you hear me now?
Yes,
Well,
we
that's it.
can.
There you're back.
You're
Okay.
back. So
So
give us
you,
more meat of the tongue.
yeah, did you hear the story, The Meat of the Tongue?
We heard the conclusion and then we lost your audio. And that's why I'm saying now we're ready for more
We heard
meat
the
of
whole
the tongue.
story.
Okay, you heard the whole story. Okay, so from
Yeah.
the meat of the tongue, I want to give you another meat of the tongue. This is a story that I heard during the pandemic, and I visited the southern part of India, the town of Pondicherry. So it was a French colony. And this story, I happened to visit the ashram, the Oro, the village of Oroville, and I got to hear this story. So here it goes. There was once a little girl who lived on the ocean floor. She had never seen the sun, the moon, or the stars, because no light ever reached the ocean bed or the ocean floor where she lived. She lived all by herself and she felt very lonely. I wish I had friends, cried the little girl. She longed for company. One day, a starfish appeared and asked her, "Have you seen the sun?" "No," said the little girl. "How sad," said the starfish, and went away. The little girl started looking for the sun everywhere. She walked a long way. One day, she saw a giant conch, a shell, with lovely spiral and colorful patterns. And she knocked on the door of that shell, of that conch. And from inside came a sage, a very learned man, wise man. And he came out and he asked, "My dear child, what can I do for you?" And the little girl asked, "How do I find the sun, sir? I want to find the sun." The sage replied, "You must think only about the sun for 21 days, and then you will see the sun." So the girl thanked the sage and sat on a rock at the bottom of the ocean bed and thought only about the sun for 21 days. So she sat there without playing, only thinking about the sun. And on the 21st day, suddenly the ocean floor shook powerfully, and the whole world tilted and threw her upwards. She went up, 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 rose up from the ocean bed, up, up in the water till she reached the surface of the ocean. And then she saw the sun shining in the sky. She was delighted to find the sun smiling at her. And the sun said, "I am the sun. Welcome to the world of light, little girl. I am pleased with your determination to find me. I want to give you a gift. And the gift is, please ask me, what is it that you wish?" So the girl replied, "I want to have lots of friends. That's what I want. I'm so lonely." "So be it," said the sun. "You shall have lots of friends, and I shall always be there for you whenever you want help." Then a huge and a swift wave rose up and carried her away. "Where are you taking me?" the little girl asked the giant waves. "We shall take you to distant lands," they said. The waves traveled far and wide and reached a distant land and left her on the shore. And there the little girl saw many people, many huts, homes that were destroyed by the giant waves. People were crying and children were terrified. The little girl had never imagined that this could happen. She felt very sad, but she then remembered the words of the sun. "Sun, sun, oh sun, how can I help these people? How can I make them happy?" asked the girl. Almost immediately, the sun appeared from behind the cloud and said, "Give them your love." Yes, give them your love. So the little girl went to a woman who was crying and said, "Please accept my love. And please, will you be my friend?" The woman looked at the girl and said, "I lost my children. Will you be my daughter?" The little girl said, "Yes, yes." And this made that woman happy. And she asked, "What's your name?" And the girl replied, "Sunamika. Sunamika is my name." Sunamika. Then a little boy came along and asked, "Sunamika, will you be my friend?" She said yes, and she became his friend. Then more and more children came to her and asked her, "Dear Sunamika, will you please stay with us?" Sunamika replied, yes, 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 to all of them. She went to each and every home and became a member of that family. And people started coming from distant lands, all looking for Sunamika. And Sunamika, the little girl, looked up at the sun and smiled. She realized that she could give her love to all the people in the world, so she multiplied into thousands. She grew, she multiplied into many Sunamikas, tens and thousands, as she crossed the oceans, reaching far and distant lands. So there were many, many tsunamikas. And this is how she started traveling all over the world. And now she has reached you, my friends, just as she reached me in Pondicherry about 4 years back. So she's your friend, little Tsunamika, a living symbol. So this is the story of Sunamika, and Sunamika was it's a little puppet. I have her somewhere, and you can. It's a finger puppet, and they were multiplied. So these were the toys made by the Auroville, the French community in Auroville, and the followers of the faith, and they made this. And the story, it's a book, storybook, which they pass on to everyone. So I happened to get this during the pandemic when I visited. But of course, this story was made after the tsunami that hit India in 2004. Well, after Tsunamika, let's go across to a Christmas story. I was born in Northeast India. I grew up in the foothills of the Himalayas, and I always longed for the Northeast mountains, rivers, tea estates. The weather is beautiful, and I've also visited Darjeeling. And recently, a couple of years ago, I happened to visit the hill station of Darjeeling. And this is a story that comes from the tea estate. And I heard this from one of my friends. There is always, an aura about Christmas in the Northeast, even in Mumbai. It's just 10 days away, and you can see certain pockets, sections in the city are already gearing up for Christmas with carol singing and evening, and then you have these candlelight concerts, and the schools close down for at least a week, 10 days, and there is a midnight mass and festive mood. Well, and this story comes from the hill station of Darjeeling. So on Christmas Day, my friend woke up on a cold, foggy morning. She dragged herself out of the bed, showing all the ill effects of a Christmas Eve party at the Darjeeling Club. She walked towards the kitchen, ready to lay her hands on a morning brew, coffee. From the corner of her eye, she noticed a white plastic bag on the table in the pantry that did an occasional jig. So this white packet seemed to move around. She ignored it. She thought it was an apparition or it was just her mind making up something as she was hungover. And she cursed the second rum and coke that she had taken the previous evening. So, holding fort in that kitchen was her help, Jerome. He was reeking of country liquor, and he was polishing the floors to perfection. And probably he was the one who had introduced her son to the local, smoke, the cigarette that we call BD. it is made in the villages. You kind of fold it and then you smoke. So on that Christmas morning, Jerome greeted her and he gave her a cup of tea. And he wanted to draw her attention to the white bag. He said in Hindi, which I'll translate, Aapka Christmas hai. It's your Christmas gift, he said. Kya hai? What is there? Murgi hai. There is a hen, a rooster. Oh my God, Jerome, open it. That hen will die, open it. She screamed aloud. Koi baat nahi, ma'am saab. After all, it's going to be your Christmas lunch, isn't it? She said, no, no, no. हम उसे नहीं मारेंगे. We will not kill that hen. Please. She was horrified. And they opened the white packet and out jumped the hen. But why? Why, it'll give us eggs. Why should we kill that hen? My friend said, just to justify its existence. Okay, said Jerome. And he said, nahi dega. It won't give you any anda. Kyunki murga hai. It's not a hen, it's a rooster. So it won't lay eggs, Jerome said. He was quite happy and he thought he would have chicken for lunch. Nevertheless, my friend rescued that hen, that squawking chicken, and from the plastic bag, and I believe it's still with her in the garden, and they haven't killed it, and it plays around in the garden, and it's kind of a Christmas gift she gave herself so that the chicken could have a dignified life. And I believe he lords it over the kitchen garden, and he kind of has many pretty hen in his coop. So a more handsome rooster, my friend says, she has not yet seen. So this was a little funny Christmas story. And while I was researching, when John had put in our group about a Christmas story from your country, I came across this from the tea estates of India. Well, that was the Christmas story. So I move on to the next story, which is also a wonderful story from India. Once, long, long ago, there was a quarrel between two kings. They had two different lands next to each other, but they were at war. One was the great king Brahmadatta. His kingdom was large and he was a very rich king, and he had a huge army, while the other king's name was Digithi. Now, Digithi his kingdom was small, he wasn't rich as compared to Brahmadatta, and he had a smaller army. Now, Brahmadatta, the more powerful king, told his generals, we will march against Digithi and conquer his kingdom. He will not be able to resist me. When Digiti heard the army's advance, he told his queen Deva, nothing we can do to prevent Brahmadatta from seizing my kingdom. For the sake of our people, it is best to avoid a battle. Let us flee from the kingdom tonight. So his wife asked him, where can we go? Oh, don't you worry, my queen. We will go to Brahmadatta's own capital city, Banaras. It is large enough to hide in, and he will never search for us there. So the king and queen, they took their young son Diguvu and fled that night to Banaras, the capital city of that kingdom of Brahmadatta. There they lodged in a very poor quarter of the city, and King Digiti disguised himself as a wandering holy man. and each day begged enough so that they could get them food to eat. Now time passed, and the prince grew up towards manhood. He had become a young man. One day King Digiti turned to his wife and said, "Truly it is said, we may forgive those who hurt us, but we never forgive those we hurt. If Brahmadatta finds us here, he will surely kill us all. It is best to send our son away from the city." The queen said, "Let him go to my parents in the west. There he can learn the arts and sciences proper for a prince. So let him learn everything, the art of warfare, of how to rule a kingdom and everything." So they sent the prince away. Now it so happened that the barber from the court of King Digiti was at that time working in the court of Brahmadatta. One day the barber caught sight of the King Digiti in the marketplace. He recognized him in spite of his disguise, begging in the guise of a holy man. Hoping for a reward, he secretly followed Digiti to his home, and then he reported to Brahmadatta. Brahmadatta sent his army to arrest King Digiti and his wife. Digiti and Deva were brought before him in the palace, in the court. "Where is your son?" demanded Brahmadatta. "Beyond your reach," replied Digiti. Brahmadatta turned to one of his generals. "Tie them up and cart them around the city for all to see. Take them out the south gate to the south gate and execute them by the sword. Allow no one to perform their last rites. Their bodies shall be prey to birds and beasts." Now on that very day, Prince Digavu, the son of Digiti and Deva, had come back to Benares to visit his parents. And as he passed through the marketplace, he saw soldiers on horseback and on foot, and among them a cart. And tied up in the cart, he saw his parents. And he was powerless to help them. King Digiti saw the prince as well, wishing to advise his son, yet mindful not to give him away. Digiti called out as if to no one, and these were the words he said: "Be not short sighted, be not long sighted. Not by violence is violence ended. Violence is ended by non violence." As darkness fell, King Digiti and Queen Deva were taken outside the city walls and executed. Their bodies were left on the ground with dozens of soldiers standing guard. Within the city, Prince Digavu told himself, "First I will perform the funeral rites for my parents, and then I will avenge their death." So he had already schemed and plotted. He brought some wine in the marketplace and brought it to the guards. They took it gladly and soon lay drunk in a drunken stupor. Digavu piled up wood, placed his parents' bodies on top, and then he lit the funeral pyre. He pressed his palms together and walked around 3 times around the flames, and he promised to avenge their death. At that moment in the royal palace, Brahmadatta was standing on his terrace, puzzling over the words of King Digiti that had been reported to him. "Be not short-sighted, be not long-sighted." And he was wondering, what did that mean? Gazing at the far south over the city wall, he could see the fire burning and a figure circling it. It must be Prince Digavu, he told himself, and a cold fear gripped his heart. The prince, his duty complete, slipped quickly into the forest. For days he stayed hidden there, hiding from Brahmadatta's men while grieving for his parents. At last, the danger and tears of grief had passed, and Digavu entered the city and he began to work in the royal stables. He worked there as an apprentice. And so it was one morning that Digavu rose early, sat before the stables, and sang to greet the dawn. His voice drifted to the palace and to the balcony where Brahmadatta was standing, who had also risen early, wakened by a fearful dream. How lovely, thought the king. I've never heard such music to ease my mind. Who is this? He sent for the singer, and Digavu was brought before him. Sing for me, said the king, not knowing who the young man was. Digavu sang, and the king's heart was gladdened. And Brahmadatta said, stay with me. Will you be my personal attendant? As you wish, my lord, replied Digavu, because his plan was indeed working. So Digavu became a trusted Brahmadatta's attendant. And since the young man's conduct was agreeable and his words pleasing, the king grew fond of him, bestowing on him more and more responsibilities and trust. Then one day, Brahmadatta wanted to go hunting and he asked Digavu to accompany him. And he said, will you drive my chariot? Digavu said, it's my honor, my king, I will certainly. And so Digavu that day drove the chariot of the king. But as the hunters pursued their quarry, Digavu cleverly, maneuvered the chariot away from the troops, away from the army, away from the rest of the hunting party. He brought the king far from the sight and hearing of the others, deeper into the forest. At last Brahmadatta said, I wish to stop and rest. So Digavu dismounted and sat cross-legged on the ground, and he told the king, come rest yourself, my lord, you can sleep on my lap. So the king laid his head on Digavu's lap and slept. Now Digavu thought this was a perfect moment for him to exact his revenge, and he gripped the sword, drew it slowly out of its sheath. He pointed the blade at the throat of the sleeping king, and suddenly the words of his father came to him. Something whispered, be not short-sighted, be not long-sighted. Not by violence is violence ended. Violence is ended by non-violence. The sword of Digavu trembled. He drew it slowly away from the sleeping king's throat and put it back in the sheath. Brahmadatta suddenly woke up, opened his eyes, and sat up in alarm. What is it, my lord? Asked Digavu. It is a dream that often plagues me. I see Digavu, the son of my enemy, coming at me with his sword to avenge his parents. Then Digavu clutched the king's hair and said, I am Digavu. I am your enemy, and here I am to avenge my parents. Have mercy on me, dear Digavu. Please grant me my life, begged Brahmadatta. How can I grant you your life? Truly it is said, we may forgive those who hurt us, but we never forgive those we hurt. You have killed my mother and my father, and would surely kill me too. So, the life to be granted is actually mine. Then, please grant me my life, begged Brahmadatta, and I will grant you your life. So Digavu released the king and put away his sword, and the two rose and clasped their hands and hugged each other, swore, promised never again to seek the other's harm. Then Brahmadatta said, I've often wondered your father's final words. Tell me, Digavu, what did he mean when he mentioned, be not short-sighted? Oh, my father meant, don't be quick to spurn a gift of friendship. And what did he mean when he told you, be not long sighted? My father meant, do not allow your hate to last too long. And what did he mean when he told you, not by violence is violence ended, violence is ended by non violence? What my father meant was, Digavu replied, you, my lord, have killed my parents and stolen their kingdom. If I were to kill you in revenge, your allies would kill me, and then my allies would kill them, and so on and so forth, with no end to this violence. But now instead, you have granted me my freedom, my life, and I have granted yours. So the violence has been put to an end. Then the king marveled at the wisdom of Digavu, who understood the full meaning of his father's words. Indeed, so great was Brahmadatta's admiration and his gratitude that he soon restored to Digavu the kingdom that he had taken from his father. And as long as both the kings lived, there was no quarrel between them, and they resolved all their differences in friendship and goodwill. So, this story comes from India, and Banaras is the holy city in the hinterland, somewhere in the dusty plains of northern India, is Banaras. So, do I have time, John, for one more story?
Of course, you've got time for one more story. We're nearly full from the meat of the tongue, but there's always, you know, that bit where you think you're full, but there's always room to squeeze a little bit more in. I think we're all in about that position. We can get one more in.
Thank you. Thank you. I heard this story in Sydney when I visited way back in 2014. And many of you must have heard this story. This is the story of Abby Yo-Yo. Once upon a time, there was a young boy who loved to play the ukulele. He'd go round the town playing the ukulele and causing such a ruckus that, of course, the grown ups would be busy and they would say, please take that thing out of here. We are talking here, get out. And they would push the young boy with the ukulele out of their houses. Not only that, the boy's father would also get into trouble because he was a magician. And he had a magic wand and he would go zoop with it and make things disappear. But the father was a practical joker. He had come up when somebody was just about to sit on a chair and he would make the chair disappear. Or when somebody was about to drink a glass of wine, soup, and the glass of wine would disappear. And people were fed up of both the father and son, and they had run out of their patience and they got tired of all this. So they said to the father to please get out from here. You both are not required, or please don't stay in the village. Out with your magic wand and your practical jokes. And so the boy and his father, since they were ostracized, they were actually asked to get out of the village. So they lived on the outskirts of the town. Now, in this town, they told stories. The old people would tell stories about the monsters and the giants that lived in the old days. They used to tell a story about Abi Yo-Yo. Abi Yo-Yo, they said, was all as tall as a mountain, as a house, and could eat people up. Of course, nobody believed it, but they told stories anyway. But one day when the sun rose, blood red over the hill, And the first people that got up and looked out of their window, they saw a great big shadow in front of the sun, and they could feel the whole ground shake. Stomp, stomp, stomp. Women screamed. Strong men fainted. They said, "Run, run, run for your lives. It's Abiyoyo. He's coming, he's coming." Down through the fields he came. He came to the sheep pasture, grabbed a whole sheep and swallowed. And then he came to the cow pasture. There also he swallowed. And then the boy and his father just then woke up. I think they had been up late the previous night, and the boy rubbed his eyes and looked straight ahead, and he said, "Hey, Dad, look, look, who's coming over the fields?" The father woke up and he said, "Oh no, my son, it's Abiyoyo. Oh, if only I could get him to lie down, I could get him to disappear," said the father. The boy said, "Come with me, father." And he grabbed his father by one hand, and the father grabbed the magic wand, and both of them, the boy picked up his ukulele and they ran over the fields towards Abiyoyo. People screamed, "Don't go near him. He will eat you alive. Come inside. We will lock you inside our house. Come on." But there was Abiyoyo. Now, Abiyoyo had long fingernails because he never cut them. He had slobbery teeth because he never brushed them. He had a huge snotty nose and blubbery lips and huge saucery eyes. Stinking feet. He was just about to come down and grab the boy when the boy took out his ukulele and began to sing. Abby yo yo, Abby yo yo, Abby yo yo, Abby yo yo. And as he began to sing, the Abiyoyo began to dance. The boy went faster. Abby yo-yo, Abby yo-yo, Abby yo-yo, Abby yo-yo. And the giant got out of breath because he kept swirling, going round and round and round, and he staggered and he fell flat on the ground. That was the exact moment the father took out his magic wand and he went zoop, 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 and Abiyoyo disappeared. People streamed out of their houses and they ran across the field and they cried, "Why, he's gone now, he's disappeared." And they said, come on, you both can come back to town. Bring your ukulele and bring your magic wand. We don't care. You can play as much of practical jokes as you wish. And they all sang, "Abby yo yo, Abby yo yo, Abby yo yo, Abby yo yo." Well, with that, we come to the end of the session.
Wonderful stories, Usha. And now,
Sorry, I've been half asleep, and trying to getting a little thirsty. It's past midnight here, but it's been wonderful to share. Thank you for. Sorry, Baba, I can't. I
I
couldn't hear.
know we got
You're not audible, John. I'm unable to hear you.
Fridays everyone did
Um, I couldn't
John's
hear
audio
you,
seems to
John.
have cut out.
Yes,
Um,
I couldn't hear you.
but I thoroughly enjoyed that. I'm a vegetarian, but I so enjoyed the meat of the tongue. And it left me with just enough room for dessert. But I have to ask a question. I don't know if this translates well, but since there was a giant in the last story, does that make it a tall tale?
I
Oh,
guess so.
come on.
Oh,
You
I
couldn't
got
you
that.
couldn't resist that,
I
could you,
couldn't
Baba?
resist, John.
Well,
Right.
I would think so, but also since I heard it from another storyteller, Jackie Kerrin in
Oh, yeah.
Sydney, so I don't know. I think that stories are true. They did happen, and they were passed on. So maybe the story of the giant, because magic certainly exists.
It,
So
it
maybe
was
the
definitely a
story,
magical story, but
yeah,
I'm a punster and there was a pun in that. And John got it. Maybe he can explain it, but uh, I enjoyed the story. It was a great story. In fact, I've
yes.
enjoyed your session. I've been quiet
Well,
most of the session, and John will tell you I'm very seldom quiet.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, Terry.
no, Omar's gone. Omar, who was here earlier,
Okay.
I'm going to announce what's coming up, because if anyone's in Marrakesh out there listening in Marrakesh, Omar every Saturday does uh,
You're breaking up.
does a
You're breaking
performance
up,
at the World
John.
Storytelling Cafe at 6 o'clock Moroccan time every Saturday. So if anyone's listening, what happened to say, Baba?
I'm
So
saying you were breaking up, but now you're coming back in.
okay, what I was saying is that there's I think what happens when cars go past, because I'm in a car park, um, it breaks up. Rona Baba is next Friday. Christmas Eve, I haven't put it up yet, but there's going to be a Simona and David Heathfield are putting together um, a fundraiser for Hala and girls in Palestine, and Rona Barber's next Friday. Like I said, Omar is live, but not on online, but live in the cafe every Saturday at 6 o'clock in the evening. So, uh, anyone's passing through, listening to this and passing through Marrakesh, pop in and see Omar. He's brilliant. And Waleed, thank you very much for flying the magic carpet tonight. Usha, thank you very much for this, and we'll see you in Marrakesh. Marvelous. Looking forward
Yeah.
to it. Lucy's gonna love you because so many of your stories fit into her theme, right? So and Baba, I'll see you in Marrakesh.
Yes, even if I have to walk, which I'm not.
Yeah, well,
Thank you,
you're yeah
Baba.
with that hatch you could fly, um, without the aid of aeroplanes. That hat that hat needs to come home. So it's going to take you to Africa, whatever happens.
I would take
Right.
that as a compliment. That's great. I can't wait
So,
to be in Marrakesh. I will see you in the flesh, and we will have a great time. And
yeah,
Absolutely.
looking
Usha,
forward
I
to it.
look forward to
There's-
meeting you as
I,
well.
I too am looking
I've got
forward.
about 50 to 60 international tellers coming.
Oh, wow.
All right. Oh, a small gathering. That
You
was a
know,
joke.
I thought I'd get together a couple of storytellers, and if you all speak at the same time, Marrakesh is going to take off.
What do you call a
So
group of
if you
storytellers?
happen to see the red city flying through the air wherever you are, that's on account of the fact that between 60 and 70 storytellers are going to be gathered at the same time in this particular place, and the hot air that will come out will make the city will rise and fly. Okay, and on that note, good night or good
Yes.
afternoon or good
Yes.
evening, wherever you are in this
Yes.
big wide
I'm going to
Good
world.
night
lunch.
from me, and good afternoon to Baba, and good evening
Thank
to
you.
you,
Good.
John. Bye
Enjoy
bye.
your sleep. Namaste.
Bye
Thank
bye.
you.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
C, out.